What's up, my Yu-Gi Bros? I'm your host, the one, the only, the RJB0. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! In Business Casual. Today on Judge Gripes, we ask how the nuts do fusion monsters work. Now, the obvious answer to this is that you activate polymerization or a polymerization-like card and send to the graveyard proper fusion materials, and then you summon the fusion monster. But a discussion with my friend and TCG player writer Beau Butler, who you may recognize for his column Specifically Speaking, may have called into question whether it's that simple. So today I'm going to bring forward 3 cases in which fusion summoning just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Our first case calls into question the very nature of fusion material itself. Whereas Xyz material is only Xyz material while it's attached to an Xyz monster, and Synchro material is only Synchro material when it's being sent to the graveyard to perform a Synchro summon, fusion material monsters are always fusion material monsters. Whether they're in your hand, in your deck, in your graveyard, whether they're banished, whether they're even specifically listed on a fusion card, a card that can be used for a fusion monster that is legal in the game is considered a fusion material monster, which basically means that every monster in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Except for the God cards are fusion material monsters, because the God cards are divine and there isn't a fusion monster that has an attribute-specific thing to divine. How do we know this? Well, it all comes down to this old field spell card called Centrifugal Field. What Centrifugal Field does is it says, quote, when a fusion material monster is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, its owner targets one fusion material monster in their graveyard that is listed on that fusion monster. That player special summons that target. Now, Centrifugal Field does not specify fusion material used to summon that fusion monster. It says fusion material listed on that fusion monster. Now, the reason why this is important is because the official ruling, and keep in mind that Centrifugal Field currently does have PSCT, the current ruling says that any monster that is listed on that fusion monster can be summoned through Centrifugal Field, which tells us that any monster, as long as it is listed on a fusion monster, is considered fusion material at all times. The big implication for this is that no matter when a monster, aside from the God cards, do anything, they do so as a fusion material monster. And this is where the Fluffles come in. Fluffle Cat and Fluffle Rabbit, in their OCG wording, said when this card is sent to the graveyard as fusion material. And that means that whenever that monster was sent to the graveyard, its effect would apply because it is always doing so as fusion material. Now, you may be skeptical, and that's okay. In fact, that's really good because you have every reason to be skeptical, because it doesn't make sense that a monster, when it does anything, is doing so as a fusion material, and therefore if it says it does something as a fusion material, then that means that it is doing so anytime, like a Fluffle monster being sent to the graveyard. But Konami actually proved this to us. They proved that the wording is important, that when it says sent to the graveyard as fusion material, it is always fusion material, because when they translated these cards into English, they specified when sent to the graveyard as fusion material for a fusion summon. They actually changed the wording, meaning that if a monster does not specify, then it always does something as a fusion material, and therefore if it says it does something when it does something as a fusion material, such as being sent to the graveyard as a fusion material, it does that every time it is being sent to the graveyard. Our second case deals with a very apparently controversial word in the phrasing of things having to do with fusion material, and that word is listed. In both the effects of Elemental Hero Prisma and Future Fusion, they use the word listed to describe how a fusion material is specified by a fusion monster. However, something interesting happens when you look at the difference between these two effects and the rulings on them. The ruling on Future Fusion says that you can send any fusion material for any fusion monster you wish to summon from your deck to the graveyard. But the same effect done by Prisma can only send cards with specific names on their fusion monsters. And that doesn't make sense because both of these cards have PSET, but their rulings are different. And the reason why Konami says that their rulings are different is because Prisma has to read the name of the monster in order for it to work. It actually has to gain a name out of the process. While that in and of itself doesn't make sense because it reads the name once it's in the graveyard, this also calls into question the ruling recently made when Fusion Reserve came out, which says that you can, after revealing a fusion monster from your extra deck, add any monster listed as fusion material on that card from your deck to your hand. Now, it doesn't have to copy a name. However, by the ruling given by Konami, a recent ruling given PSET and everything, by the ruling that the reason why Prisma works differently from future Fusion, Fusion Substitute, in order to work similarly to Prisma, would have to require it to change its name or do something with the names of the monster, and that just simply isn't the case. Our final case deals with the weird-ass mechanic that we know as contact fusing. Contact fusing is actually not considered fusion summoning, which means that you can't use fusion material substitute cards like King of the Swamp in order to summon them. The official wording on the ruling says that the reason why you can't do that is because the King of the Swamp is not being used as fusion material. It must exist as fusion material on the card, since the card does list fusion material, but it is not being used for the purpose of fusion material since it isn't being used for fusion summon. The weird thing about this ruling is that Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon says that it, quote, cannot be used as fusion material, which in theory should mean that you can contact fuse it since you aren't using it as fusion material by the same wording as the King of the Swamp ruling. Furthermore, if Konami were to rule that it isn't the same since it is being used as fusion material, since it exists as fusion material on a fusion monster, then it shouldn't be able to be used at all by the ruling that we established earlier with Centrifugal Field, which says that all cards which could be used as fusion material are fusion material at all times. So, in conclusion, every ruling ever made about fusion summoning is just about the biggest case of BKSS ever. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just kind of done trying to figure this out. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you did, let me know why in the comment section below. And of course, subscribe for more decks, discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Thank you guys for watching. I'm your host, the one, the only, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See ya.